Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here so bright and early. Thanks for being here for the presidential picks on the Heart2Heart Stage and ACC 22 in Washington, D.C. And today, I'm really excited because I'm joined by three of ACC's four past female presidents, Drs. Pamela Douglas, Dr. Minnow Walsh, and Dr. Athena Poppas. So, I have always felt that we stand on the shoulder of giants. And so the giants for me have been the ACC's first female presidents, right? And so the first one was Dr. Suzanne Noble, who served in 1982 to 1983. She was truly a pioneering researcher and a visible leader. She's the woman leader you've seen in that ACC history black and white photo speaking to Congress. We're thankful for her leadership in paving the way for us to take the helm decades later. So these are truly trailblazing women presidents, and I'm lucky to share the stage with all of them because they have really contributed immensely to ACC's mission and vision, giving so much to the next generation of cardiovascular professionals and their patients. So without further ado, let me introduce each of them briefly so that we can get in a really fantastic conversation this morning. So first, Dr. Pam Douglas is the Ursula Geller Professor of Research in Cardiovascular Disease in the Department of Medicine at Duke University and Director of the Multimodality Imaging Program at Duke Clinical Research Institute. She served as ACC President from 2005 to 2006. And I know she doesn't need any introduction, but Pam. And then Dr. Minnow Walsh is the Director of Heart Failure and Cardiac Transplantation Programs and Director of Nuclear Cardiology at St. Vincent Heart Center in Indianapolis. She served as ACC President from 2017 to 2018. Remember I mentioned Dr. Douglas was 2005 to 2006. It was how many years later? 2017 and 18 when Dr. Walsh became president. And then Dr. Athena Poppas, sitting next to me here, is the Director of Lifespan Cardiovascular Institute at Rhode Island, Miriam and Newport Hospitals, and the Chief of Cardiology Division and Professor of Medicine at the Warren Alpert Medical School of Brown University. She served as ACC President in 2020 and 2021 and passed the leadership baton to me in a first ever in the college, a woman handing off the role of president to another woman. So thank you all for joining me. And I want to get started with a few questions. So, Pam, all of you really are true trailblazers. So, Pam, tell me about, did you ever think you were going to be president? Did you know you wanted to be president? And what were some of your challenges to get there?
So I had no idea that I would be president. It really actually wasn't on my radar screen that Susie had been president because I was just fellow and I, was not really paying attention to anything. And then I was just trying to finish my fellowship and get started in my own career, right? Nose down. And then two wonderful women, Reed Redberg and Elise Foster, called me one day in the mid-90s and said, "We want to nominate you for the Board of Trustees." And I'm like, really? And so we called up Tony DeMaria because we were all echocardiographers and said, "Tony, is this like have any legs?" And he goes, "No, you haven't been a committee chair and it wouldn't happen." But at that time, there was a one-year position as secretary and a one-year position as treasurer, not a full term. And so they nominated me for the one-year position, which I got. And then, almost immediately I re-upped and at that point said, "Well, let me get on the trustees." And then, so that was in the mid-90s and 2000s. And then I got asked, this is very interesting, I was also active in the American Society of Echocardiography. And they also nominated me for president kind of out of turn because they thought that I was going to be ACC president and they wanted to grab me first. Oh. So they kind of re-upped me because I was the first female president for ASE. And then immediately after that was nominated for ACC. So I think I benefited from that gap and from the sort of pent up, like, it's too long. It's been too long. We need to have a woman. But then obviously the gap between myself and Minna was like, okay, check that box, we did it. We had our woman, now we can go back to whatever we normally do.
Can I
Yeah,
add something?
absolutely.
So Pam and I were on the Women in Cardiology. It started out as a task force. So, and it was a task force for like 8 years before it became a committee and then a council. But when she was trustee, I remember you came to a meeting like it was the day of convocation, and you already had your robe on and everything, and I realized what being a trustee was, and so that was an early influence on me. Like I was like, what? What are you doing? And so I didn't know what the structure of the college was until I knew what you did, and so early influences matter.
No, it's the, if you can't see one, you can't be one. But once you can see it, then you can say, wow, yeah, I could do that.
So, Minna, go back to that time. Oh,
I was going to add that I distinctly remember that you came in, there was a Women in Cardiology, I can't remember if it was a committee or task force at that point, and it was pre-convocation, and that's when we got very dressed up for those events. And you said...
Galas afterwards, we had big balls afterwards, yeah.
But you walked into this room full of women and said, I just want you to know, this is what the president of the ACC looks like. And you just owned it. It was great. And I thought, all right.
Yeah.
so Minna, go back to what you were saying when you saw Pam in those gowns. Do you think that was your initial foray? What made you want to be president?
My journey is I ran for the Board of Governors in my chapter, and I go, well, first of all, I've told this story, I was approached to run for governor by some of the past governors. You should run, and I was like, no, my kids are too young, I'm going to do it maybe 3 years. That was my plan, because I was like, yeah, I think I'd like to do that. And they said, oh, no, now. Okay, so listen to the outside voice, really, it helped. So then when I was a governor, and Athena and I were governors together, then I kind of figured out more about what a trustee was, and I was like, yeah, I think I qualify. So it was kind of, that was the first step.
What about some of your challenges?
As president?
Well, no, not as president, to just get there. Were there some challenges or some barriers that really stick out for you?
Yeah, I think the combination of approach, the travel and all the work you had to do, I was a little bit concerned, like you were Board of Governors chair, I considered that my year. I was like, oh, I wonder if I should do that. And then my husband, here's another outside voice, very close outside voice, he said, well, what year would that be? Would you be the Board of Governors chair? And I told him the year, and he goes, oh, well, that's the year Gil will be a senior. It'll be the last year he's home. Done. Didn't even pause. Did not put my hat in that ring. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I think balancing what you want to do personally and how much you want to be home and how much effort you're going to put into the job, you have to think really hard about it.
I just want to make sure everybody heard that, because we tend to think that it's a lockstep climb up, and there's not an opportunity to step sideways for whatever reason and come back and then proceed. And I think that's a very, very powerful message, to say that it doesn't have to be linear and you don't have to do everything all the time. You can do what you need to do and come back if you want.
Mm-hmm.
So Athena, tell us about you. How was your road to the presidential? Was it straight? Was it curved?
Definitely not straight. And I think, to tag on to what Pam was saying, Miriam Limacher, who was on the WIC early on.
She chaired it.
She chaired
Started it, yeah.
She started it. And she had said, you can have it all. You just can't have it at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it was like a light bulb for me. I said, oh, same sort of thing. Okay, I got it. And I was just encouraged from folks at home when I see some of my colleagues and former fellows, former fellow and faculty now at Brown. So one of my colleagues had encouraged me to start on the Board of Governors, and actually the first person who asked me said, we are starting a council. They hadn't had one in Rhode Island. We'd love for you to be on it because we don't have any women. And I said, well, if there's another reason you want me on there, I'm happy to do it. And so then I got really engaged in it on the education side. So it definitely wasn't linear, and it was a lot of external encouragement or suggesting to do something. Sometimes the timing wasn't right, so did other things. But
Will you hear the? Go ahead, Pam.
No, I just wanted to say something about, like, that's a great response, Athena, to say, well, if there's another reason. But it's also fine, like, I'll take it, right? You know? I just sound opportunistic. But for me, you know, there were times when, you know, you're the only woman and you're here because you are a woman. And I'm like, I'll take it and I'll prove to you that this is not a token position and that I can really be effective in the position. You know, men get it because they're men.
But I
So
want to.
why not?
I want to go back. Were you? And I want to know from all of you. Were you intentional? You know, you hear that word a lot, and with all of the discussions about how women go up in leadership, there are so many times you hear the advice: be intentional. Pam, were you intentional?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Yeah.
And not at all. I mean, even in my day job career, you know, I've been chief of cardiology 2 places. I never thought I'd be chief of cardiology. I just got itchy where I was and was looking for something else, and that was an opportunity.
Athena, you were trying to say.
no, I was going to agree.
Yeah. How about you, Minnow?
Well, I've said this publicly a lot in interviews. I didn't get the vice presidency the first time I tried. It took me 3 tries. And people don't talk about that much, but it's true. There's a few people who get it the first time, but not always. So I became intentional. Like, once I set that as a goal, I said, well, yeah, I gotta pursue. I'm not gonna go away, like run away with my, you know. But one thing I want to say that happened to me the entire year I was president is people, if like somebody was, you're doing an interview, like Fits on the Go or some of the things that we do in the college, I was questioned always about being the woman president of the college. And I ended up saying to people when they would say that is, I would like someone to ask me what it's like to be the president of the college. Because that's what I am. And then I'll respond, is it different being a woman? But I kind of got sick of the question. You know, like, well, can't you just ask me about my experience? Yeah.
It's like the only thing remarkable about you as a woman.
Exactly. I became the president of the college, and it wasn't because I'm a woman, and so, but the question always was asked.
Well, so
And I hope they don't ask you. I hope that's not a thing anymore.
But so talk about your experience, Pam, Minnow, Athena, about being president. What was that like? And did you feel that you were prepared? Did you feel that you were supported?
We had a very difficult time when I was president. It was a year of transition of the CEO and really a constitutional crisis for the college, identity crisis for the college of how much are we volunteer driven, how much are we staff driven, and who has authority over what. And so it was a very challenging year, which culminated in me asking the CEO to resign and a new CEO search. I don't think that had anything. I think it actually did have something to do with me being a woman, because my predecessors were a little reluctant to confront the problem. And I remember 2 nights before I became president, one of my predecessors talking about the issue and saying, I wonder how long this person's going to be our CEO. And I like whipped my head around and said, what do you mean? And they sort of explained it. And I went like, and you guys haven't done anything about it. And then no, they didn't want to address, because it was, you know, they didn't want to be accused of being sexist or, well, I don't know what it was. And they didn't have the cojones. And they didn't have the ovaries to do it. So
But did you enjoy your presidential year?
I did, because of that, we forged such a bond amongst the executive committee and on the board, because it was so intense, and amongst some of the past presidents as well who were very engaged, that I treasure those friendships. They're some of my best friends now, were people that I worked with during that time to get the college through that crisis.
Minnow, did you enjoy your presidential year?
Loved it. It was a dream come true. I'm sorry to say, I traveled the world, you know, and that's what you get to do. But that's also what people think we do. but we're also the chair of the board of a multi-million-dollar company, and that's a big deal. And you have to run the meetings, and you have to, settle any disputes, or sometimes you have to, have a hard conversation with somebody. So that's what being the president is chairing the board. And so those things are hard and develop you as a leader like crazy. And Shaljakovovitz was CEO when I was president, and I said to him, the one request I made of him right at the beginning was, just please don't resign, and he resigned. For a good reason. He was offered a really great opportunity, and I still remember him calling me, and I was like, this is the one thing I didn't want. And so we too had to do a search. But those things really develop you as a leader.
I don't know, Athena. I was thinking about what Minnow just said, and I think you had to do a search also for CEO. So it seems like the women get that role.
It's true, actually.
But Minnow, you said that we travel the world.
Dr. Zogby did a search too.
Ah, okay.
He's a boy.
Yeah, that's true. He did. But Athena, you didn't travel the world. I didn't travel the world as president. So very different presidential year. Talk about your feelings, your year, and kind of what it's a big loaded question because I lived this with you.
You did, but I think to come back to the original question was, how did you feel supported?
Yeah.
And, we all, again, it started this time in 2020, so the world was changing quickly. And day 2 of being president, similarly, Dick Kovacs, the proceeding, said, we need to have a call. And the CEO, same sort of thing, was moving on. So I had to have an emergency trustee meeting to discuss this. So in addition to canceling the annual meeting and
Yeah.
et cetera. So there was a lot happening, but I think that at the heart of it, it was not at all what you expected, but man, do you grow when you have to move into new places. And I felt very prepared and incredibly supported by, I could pick up the phone and call Pam or Minnow and Dick and did in the past. And I felt supported by you. And I remember us working through a lot of things, trying to figure out how to run a 6-hour board meeting virtually and saying, Dipti, I need you to just watch the chat because I don't know how to do this any other way. We're making it up as we're going along here. And I think that's what really mattered.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's nice to be able to reflect and think about, but going back, would you change anything?
I'd make the pandemic go away.
Well, that's an easy one for you.
Yeah.
Minnow, what would you change? Or if you don't have to.
No, I would say that I don't think I have imposter syndrome anymore, but I did then. And I think a lot of people talk about it. One sort of dumb story is that I got invited someplace to, like, around the world or something. I can't remember. And I was vice president, and I said to myself, well, they only invited you because you're the vice president of the college. And then I said to myself, what? You're the vice president. Own it. Just, well, what? It was sort of like, well, my academic accolades aren't enough unless I was the vice president. I don't feel like that anymore. That's gone.
So what? You are the vice president. You were the vice
I
president.
was. I know.
Like,
so
that's a good
I'm
reason.
like, what a waste of emotion. Just get rid of it now, please. Anyone who feels this way, it's like, okay. So I wish I would have seen that earlier and gotten that under control.
I think that's a hard one to get under control. We were sitting in the audience watching somebody's
Pat O'Gara.
speech. It was Pat O'Gara.
It was Pat O'Gara.
And I turned to Minnow and I said, oh my God, do you think you could stand on stage and do that? She looked at me like, why are you telling me this now? I already
Exactly.
read it.
I was like, Pat is so, his speech was just amazing. And Athena, literally, we're clapping like this, and she goes, do you really think you could do that? Thanks, buddy.
It was all internal in my head,
Like,
sure. Like, I don't know if I could
I was
do that.
thinking the exact same thing. Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. she reinforced it.
So Pam, is there anything you would change?
Well, I'm going to pivot.
Okay.
Can you? Yeah, sure. I'd rather not have a constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to change the profession is amazing and enormous. And the things that, in spite of all the churn, the things that either just my year or the board my year or the committees were able to do during my year, appropriate use criteria, right? That's a whole new document category now used by payers. We actually created the Society of Cardiovascular of SCCT because there were two. There was a medicine group and a radiology group, and we got them together at O'Hare and locked them in a room and told them that you're not getting let out until you guys figure out how to work together. Because it's not good for cardiology, it's not good for our patients for you guys to be separate. So some of those, you have that authority and the ability to do that. And it doesn't go away once you're done as a past president. And your term is over, you still have the gravitas and the authority and the ear of people. And part of it is because of everything you learned about the profession, but about how to get things done, about how to be a leader, that you can come back 10 years later and start a diversity and inclusion initiative, which is what I did, which I am just blown away at this meeting. It is the culture of cardiology now. And 5 years ago, everybody was like, did we really need this? Like, why, we're not about that. We're about, like, treating our patients. So, that's just kind of fluff. But now it's on everybody's lips. It's in every session. And that authority comes from the year's presidency. 10 years later, no anticipation or preview that I would have that opportunity. And it's been one of the most rewarding things in my life.
Well, and to that point, Rick Chazal appointed you as chair of that task force because of who you are. And he said, because we discussed it, I was vice president, he was president, and we discussed it. And he said, there's only one person I think we should ask, and it was you.
And you're talking about change, and so the ability to sort of use that time to help change things and be impactful. So when things happen, to not just react, but your job is to lead and make it better, whether it was the pandemic, the AUC. So when a crisis comes up, what do you use the collective power of the ACC to do for good? The health equity on the heels of George Floyd, in my year. In the pandemic, the SQC, I didn't do it. They just built a task force and daily was doing updates. So the ability to steer things and respond and push things in a direction is really, that's rewarding.
So we don't have a lot of time left, but what I want to know is, we'll start off with you, Athena, go backwards. What do you see as the future of cardiology?
More of this.
Or women.
More women.
More people of
Athena
color.
Athena and I had a conversation, and I won't tell the whole conversation, but it started with me saying, who do you think the next woman president is going to be? And we batted that back and forth. I won't say what we said, but we're very intentional. We want a next, so our job is to reach out and say, it's your turn, and to other underrepresented folks too. But, some of the jobs that some of the senior women hold now is because, I made a couple of calls to tell people, you're eligible for this, let's go.
So paying it forward,
Yeah.
encouraging people, I think, is important. Men and women. And
Men
just
and
trying
women.
to be,
Yeah. We love men too,
Pam, your thoughts?
No, I think that's really true. I think we have been amazingly successful in integrating women into college leadership, getting a woman on every podium in this meeting. Athena started that when she chaired the meeting. 5 years ago, we were at about 15% women, and we're this year incoming committee members and leaders in the college, 38% women. Amazing. Not that, we declare victory and we're done, but we need to do that for Blacks and Hispanics, other people of color, other people of different sexual orientation and gender identities, and really, truly make this the house of cardiology.
So I'm going to end in the last 5 minutes with a question for each of you. What's the one word that you would use? Because you know I'm all about the word, right? And so grace was my word. What is the one word to describe your president? Presidential year. Or being a cardiologist, either one.
I think it's resilience, which became a word that we sort of leaned on a lot in the last couple of years. But through that, it means, you know, being strong through challenging times, but it also means adapting to change, because change is always happening.
Well, I'll hearken back to what I spoke about when I was president at the opening. Be an advocate, and just in multiple different ways, not legislatively, of course, but also just advocacy for our patients, for our, you know, and so I would say that's something that's just very dear to me, and also kind of defines how I operate in life.
Ooh, I wasn't ready for this. I started out in my mind with innovation and change, but maybe I want to end on the same note that you ended the opening ceremony, and that's love. And I was, my tears were coming down my face with that gay men's course. I have to tell you, that was just, oh my God. My final thing that you do as a president is give a talk at convocation, and my talk was on love and how we needed to love each other. We needed to love our patients. And I don't obviously mean a romantic love, but how we need to care for each other and how we need to value each other and value our patients, value our trainees, value our opportunities. And so I'll do love.
Really good. Can't complain about love. What about, you know, the clinician wellness has been a really important piece, and some of that is about taking care of ourselves. Yesterday I interviewed Dr. Fooster, and I said, you know, he focuses on our health, and I said health is about eating well, sleeping, exercising. What do you do to take care of yourself?
Well, spend time with friends and family, and I went for a run this morning, and that's why I was a little late. But I think those are the important pieces.
You know.
Yeah, exercise, running. Athena and I have run together for years. Thanks for asking me today. No, just kidding. But also, one thing that happened to me in the pandemic is I do enjoy reading non-medical stuff and read on planes a lot. And so we had no planes. And so I had to get a hold of some time and thoughtfully insert that into my day and week and say, you're going to get to do this. This is important. And so that was a new, it took me months to figure out why I felt off.
I'll go with the exercise. Also, I do yoga and meditate. We have, in the summer, we have a phenomenal garden, and we actually eat from the garden almost 12 months a year in North Carolina. And so we're having salads from the garden now and planting. Wow. And my super wonderful husband and 2 new kittens who bring such joy in my life.
All right, my last question to each of you. How do you want to be remembered? When somebody thinks about Pam Douglas, how would you like to be remembered?
You know, I did this exercise once in one of those leadership training things and went off and they said, write your own obituary. And it's interesting, and it's a very interesting exercise. I really encourage people to do it because we focus so much on the next achievement, and you want to be remembered as a person of compassion and passion, and as a friend, of course, and a spouse. In my case, I don't have children, so I'm not as a mother. A mother of my kittens, but you want to be remembered as a whole person, and I hope that is true.
Yeah, well, aside from my family, and I have a huge family, my siblings and everything, but kind of within the college, I think what has been really important to me is patient-centered care and team-based care. And those are things I've talked about for years. Before I was president, I still lean hard into that. And so I hope that some of the efforts in those 2 areas have brought us forward. I feel it. We are very patient-centered. We have I was vice chair of the policy document on that with Fred Beauvais. And team-based care, you can feel it here all the time. So those are my two.
Athena.
I haven't done this exercise before, so it's hard. I think grace and being able to understand other people and moving forward in change, that understanding where people want to be, where other members want to be, friends, family, colleagues, and trying to collectively help folks get there.
Well, this has been a wonderful session. You know, you are all trailblazers. They say that women choose cardiology when they can have role models, and I can't think of any better role models than the three of you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Back at you.
All right, guys, thank you so much.